go back and forth like you normally do. Whoever's talking, put it on. All right, so we're going to start. I guess basically a little behind the scenes footage of how we put all this together. So we're in studio today, and while going through the process of the different pillars that we want to give to you, I thought it'd be pretty cool. We all talked about it. I thought it'd be really cool and neat to allow you to see the process that goes into this. When you're putting together a course and when you have to come up with the content for it, you want to make sure, number one, that it makes sense to the individual that's involved in the course, and that's really coming from all three of us. And as we spoke about before, you may have seen some of our other content, each individual pillar or course, chapter, whatever you want to call it, whatever we decide to call it at that time, will have a piece of each one of us, and some of them will be geared towards specifically one of us. So you'll be getting perspective from all of us, and then you'll be getting reinforcement, for example, the psychology behind something you hear from the doc, right? So it's going to be really interesting. I thought it would be pretty cool to just kind of get some of this stuff on film, and you guys can do what you want with it, right? Make sense?
Yeah, I think that's cool.
So let's first talk about which pillar do we really want to go into first, because some of them are going to take a lot more deliberation and planning and discussion, right? So let's go over the pillars again that we have. For number one, we have financial awareness, and I'm not going in any order, guys. So if you are involved in the course, this is just BTS stuff of us putting it together, not necessarily in the order that it's received at the end game here. So we have a financial awareness, we have mental awareness, physical awareness, we have social awareness, community awareness, right? What am I missing here? Self-awareness. Yep. We're missing two.
Financial, mental, physical, social.
The intro and outro. That's what it was.
Yep. That's right.
Intro and outro. Those should be
Intro
around.
Yep.
What's that?
What is that?
I mean, intro is just basically kind of going over who we are, how this whole thing came together. We did get a lot of content.
It's not a pillar.
The why behind it. Yeah. It's like a module, right?
Gotcha.
A module. That's the word I was
Okay.
going for.
I thought
is
these
module.
were like pillars. I was like, how does that align?
It's,
with
module is
content?
the actual word that I was going for, and it was just,
Got it.
Well, it's really intro and outro awareness. So anytime you walk in a room or out of a room,
That's
you know what? Yeah, I'll tell you
I
what,
was trying to piece that together.
it could certainly be intro. I know when I walk in a room, and I talk about this all the time, about having a certain presence, right, and being aware of that presence when you walk in. Because one thing I get a lot, and I mean, you guys tell me, I don't think this is true at all. And the only reason I thought about it right now is somebody brought it up to me again today, is how intimidating I am. And I don't really see myself as an intimidating person, but I guess I got to be more aware of that. Falls into self-awareness, right?
there you go.
Well, that's raises a question, like, do you need to be more aware of that, or is that just somebody that's sensitive and where they're coming from you appear intimidating? You could not be an intimidating person, but there could be a group of people that just find you intimidating.
Yeah, sure.
Or more than one thing could be true.
Yeah, more than one thing. It's weird how often I hear that, right?
Even our clients.
Clients, I had people I worked with. I'll never forget this girl. She worked at my reception area for probably 6 years at this point, and she was great. I mean, she was fantastic. I never had an issue with her ever. Always on time. Always, she actually still works in my other office now. And one day she came up to me, and I don't remember what happened. I think it was like at a Christmas party where we got to interact a little more on a social level. But a few days later, it's like, I just wanted to tell you thank you because I feel so more comfortable at work now. I'm like, why? I didn't know you. She goes, you're just so intimidating. I used to be afraid. I used to ask guys on the floor to go in your office to ask for stuff like paper or whatever you needed because I was so intimidated, afraid to go in your office. But you've been working with me for 6 years. You know what I mean? It was
It's a
really,
long
really
time
weird.
not to bring it up.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a physical thing? If you're experiencing this a lot, is it a physical intimidation? Is it just is it the role, right? Just hey, I'm that ownership.
I think it's both.
Maybe.
He doesn't smile as much. He is kind of walking around like big boss, which he is in most of the situations. But it's mostly, and it's mostly from women. Mostly women who do say, at least my clients.
I get it from a lot of
mostly,
men too.
Most of the clients of mine that have mentioned that are women, and they're like, oh, but he's so intimidating. Like, you're friendly once people get to know you and they sit down and have a conversation with you and everything opens up. But in the beginning, I think it's just your appearance.
Today, this exact situation, I want to make it too specific because I know who I'm talking about. But I'm speaking to somebody like one of my partners, and somebody had to say something. Long story short, I sent a message. Why didn't you just call me and talk about this? And my phone rings, and he's like, "Look, he's very intimidated by you. You're a very scary person." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "He's just afraid to say something wrong, and you know what?" And I'm like, "He's like almost 60 years old. He's a grown man. Like I have much respect for him. Why would he have? I don't treat him in a way to do that." And again, the individual I'm talking to is someone who I highly respect. Look at somewhat as a mentor. 65 years old, 20 years older than I am. 21, just for the camera. Make sure we're clear. I don't want to age myself. No, but really, I was shocked to hear him tell me, and he said to me, like, "Look, you have to realize that sometimes you have to be aware of how people view you, because you come off as a very intimidating guy. When you walk into a room, you demand respect and presence, and he said you have a certain presence about you that you demand respect, and a lot of people find that intimidating." And I just found that, odd.
Well, that's spot on for so much what we're talking about with self-awareness, though. It's not just about awareness of what I feel or what I think. It's about what the perception of other people. I mean, that's a huge part of awareness that a lot of people just miss.
Yeah, and I think I always say this too, is that perception is reality. You know what I mean? And I talk about this a lot with kids. As you guys know, I have kids. And you never know, like when a kid makes these odd comments that are just so out there, because their perception of a situation is so incredibly different from what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the mental capacity, to understand adult situations a lot of times. So you have no idea what they're thinking. And in the adult world, it's the same thing. So yeah, that's probably something we should touch on, and I guess in the self-awareness, right?
Well,
Or would that be more community awareness? Doc, what's your opinion on
There'll
this?
probably be more self-awareness of the aspect that you're talking about. Like, if you're saying a lot of people are talking about you that way, so again, more than one thing's probably true. There's probably some perception on their part that you could be scary, it could be appearance, could be things beyond your control. But it also could be the way you're responding to people, right? So like if you're short with someone once, that sets the tone. And if that's their first interaction with you, or the first interaction they see of you, that might be how they just view you're supposed to be, right? Because we make that a first impression pretty quickly, and it's hard to shake.
It's actually a really good point, because you know what? We definitely want to touch on that in this. When that first impression, if you're short with somebody, because typically I'm very busy, even at events where there's hundreds of people showing up to see me, right? Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you, but I'm very, very quick with it and on to the next, because I have to interact with so many people. So I think that's something we should absolutely touch on in the self-awareness aspect, is being aware, because I'm always big on when you walk into a room, have a certain presence where people notice you, right? But we have to be aware of what they're noticing and what their perception is at that point in time.
So this topic, I think when we talk about self-awareness, what are the kind of results that we want to get? I think the first thing we want to get across, and I love this perception is reality, is the reality as we know it might not be the reality that everybody else knows, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the first step in self-awearness
Well,
is...
we know it's not going to be. Right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so that's exactly, we know it's not going to be. And even our own awareness of ourselves is going to be skewed and biased, and we're going to have a difference from what's really there versus what we think is there. And so that's a core concept, I think, just in the entire awareness conversation. So that's got to be one of the key results we drive people to right away, understanding.
That actually might be one of our, that might be our tagline. Success through awareness, perception is reality. We have to think about that.
But if you think of someone like, whatever, watch a fight and you could sit in the room, four people have different opinion who's winning.
Yeah, is that
Including
true?
the
Yeah.
judges, right?
Yeah.
It's just because you're all looking at certain things that portray to you that, like, oh, that matters more to me, that matters, that person seems like, or I had a rooting interest. There's going to be a lot of things that portray, or, how you feel about something. And a lot of it's not under control. A lot of it is just going to be self-perception of how they view things, or reflection on how it comes across. So it's hard to manage in a lot of ways, but I think the intention can go a long way. So like you said, your intention to walk into a room, you want to make sure that you're making a statement. You might want to modify that for certain rooms that you're walking in, because if you're getting a certain kind of response back from a certain group of people all the time, and they make up that room, maybe that's not a room you want to walk in with that kind of attention, right? You maybe want to have a different way that you walk into that room that's very specific to them. So that's a good piece of awareness, is when to do what too, right?
You know, I will say this too, back on the employee situations. One, I don't, there's not, if you walk to any one of my employees today and said, who do you work for? They're like, I don't work for him, I work with Shane. From my reception to my partners. I'm very, very big on nobody works for me, we work together, right? And that's what I found so odd about that, is I emphasize that so much. To still have an intimidation factor obviously had to be something that I was doing daily. And of course, in an office environment, as you can imagine, my personality is a little bit different. I have to be the boss, right? I have to be the guy that you come to for all the decisions, and when it's not good, I have to tell you it's not good, right? So I can certainly see that. Just in the public setting is where I find myself really need to start paying attention to how I am doing that. So, guys, again, this is why we do this BTS stuff for you, because so much stuff comes out and you're consistently learning. And that's why I think it's so important to have perspective here from all of us. And you should really be taking notes even during these BTS scenes, because there's a lot of things that you're going to learn that may not necessarily be in one of the modules that you would learn through this BTS. So I think we should definitely include this BTS, maybe as a precursor, put this stuff out, to get them interested in actually coming through the modules, because there's going to be a lot of information that we talk about in this that doesn't necessarily make it into a module itself. You know what I mean?
So here's the question: when you get this feedback from your employees, right? You're getting a mirror held up to you, and like, hey, this is how you're reflecting to these people. How do we get people to kind of get that mirror focusing on themselves, right? So when you don't have that feedback from somebody else, how can we become more self-aware, I guess?
Well, I think in that sense, where, in my opinion, I want to hear the psychology behind this, but I always ask for feedback, right? And I would emphasize and encourage people to do the same thing, is ask people, what do you think about when we first met, right? What was your perception of me when we first met? Like we actually do it a lot too, where when I have people on the show, especially, again, I'm going to be careful what I'm saying here, younger, attractive women who are intelligent, right, always talk about how people perceive them, and then they say, oh, I'm in law school, I'm studying to be a surgeon. They're like, oh, wow, like they're incredibly shocked that this young, attractive woman is in law school or has a master's degree from UF or, wherever they're at, right?
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, so I think asking those questions consistently to the people around you that you are, at the very least, interested in their opinion is important.
Here's a big awareness piece to that. You're still the boss, right? So even if you're saying, I work with Shane, I don't work for Shane, there's still the realization that you've signed a paycheck. Like,
Yes,
you can still
yeah.
fire them. So more than one thing can be true. They do work with you, but they also still work for you, and that's still going to be in the back of their mind regardless of what you say.
Of course.
And how open you tell them to be, and including when you give feedback, right? Like, yeah, he's open for feedback, but I'm still going to be cautious about what I say because
Can't
it might
get
land in
true.
a different
Exactly.
way, right? So
Yeah.
you still have to have this awareness that even with, you can be as open as you want, as long as you have the title of boss, there's always going to be a little protection of what people say. So as
Yeah,
long
that's
as you
fair
have
of
that
loss.
awareness.
Very true.
Well, that's the tricky thing with awareness, because you could turn around and you say, hey, you're my business partner, you know me as well as anybody besides my spouse, so you can kind of tell me how it is, but your perception of who I am is biased by our relationship and how close we are, and that's why it's difficult to get feedback from a spouse, because they're so close to you, you can't really trust a spouse's feedback a lot of times, right? So it's interesting, you talk about that dynamic, hey, boss, employee, there's always that bias in there,
Yeah.
but it's true even from people that are close to you. But then how can somebody who's not close to you actually offer you insight? Because how are they going to know?
No, and you know what? That's always a big difficulty. I always tell people, don't ask me a question you don't want to hear my honest answer, because I will tell you. I'll be as polite about it as possible, but I will be honest about my opinions.
Can't imagine why you're intimidating.
Well, that's what could certainly feed into it. But I appreciate when people are honest with me. And even if I don't want to hear it, I'm not going to get mad at you because you're correctively criticizing something I'm doing or something I'm asking about. But I 100% understand what you're saying, that very, very few people in your life will have that ability to be brutally honest with you when you're asking a question.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And then, of course, it comes to, are you able to actually hear what's being said to you, because you might be good at that. But there's a lot of people that hear feedback about who they are or what they're doing, and they don't buy it. And you know, we work with teams where it's like, hey, we're brought in to talk about this and help you with something because of this person, and they don't think there's a problem.
Yeah.
You can tell them there's a problem. They can get all the feedback in the world. There's a problem. They don't hear it. They don't
Yeah.
want to hear it.
I'm amazing. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally mine every single day. Every single day I have to have a conversation with, if not multiple, at least one person about reality. And I say that respectfully because the reality is what it is, right? And forget perception for a moment. Just responsibility, awareness, things of this nature. So when people say to me, look, I just want your honest opinion, I always tell them, no, you don't. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll say it politely, but I'm going to tell you my honest opinion. I know she's over here like thinking, she probably has 100 stories right now. Because she always tells me, like, why can't you be nicer to people like that? And I'm like, it's not about, it is for me, I believe, it's as nice as I can be. I'm being as kind as possible because I'm telling you the things that you need to know that you're asking about in order to make whatever change you want to make in that situation.
But you also need to read the person. Like some people, like you said, are not acceptable to getting that feedback from you, or some of them don't care to want it. So you're talking against the wall and you're creating that, let's say,
But
it's
what do
not
I-
like a tension, but they're like, wow, like he thinks that of me. Like
Okay, but hold on.
in some situations where you know you're talking against the wall, it kind of just like, why?
But do I not always preference? If you said to me, hey, I want to ask you a question, okay. And I always say the same thing. You want my honest opinion, or do you want my friend opinion to make you feel better about the situation?
Yeah, but which
Right.
person's going to say the opposite?
And
Because
they-
the latter.
Well, then I'll just tell them, hey, yeah, look, you look great. You know what I mean?
Right,
That
but
dress
then-
looks great on you.
But then they know that.
Danger
those-
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, but my point is this: I always preface like, look, you probably don't want to hear 100% of what I have to say, right? And if you do, depending on the situation, mind you, right? If it's more of an extreme, and if you do, I will tell you. But typically, I will start going down the path and telling them, okay, A, B, this is what I think you need to do, because the majority, just to kind of backtrack here, so you understand what I'm talking about. The majority of people that are asking me for opinions, it's about their life, right? I deal with a lot of addicts. I deal with a lot of people with high anxiety and depression, right? So they're asking me opinions. And in those scenarios, I have to be a little softer in my approach for obvious reasons. I'm not trying to, set someone off or trigger them. So that's a little bit different. But then I have people calling me, asking me for opinions about just day-to-day responsibility of life, or why am I not is a big one. Why am I not as successful? Why is my relationship falling apart? Why can't I be more like you? Which I hate that question all the time. But, I'm telling them, well, this is why. Why do you wake up every day at 9:40 in the morning? Why are you not waking up at 6 a.m.? Oh, and they start going into all the 95 excuses, and they always say the big one, I try. And I say, well, that's the biggest excuse of all, because there's no such thing. You either did or you did not. And if you did not, what do you need to change in order to do, right?
Just go
Yeah.
ahead.
I see it too.
I know.
That sounds like one size should fit all, when maybe it doesn't in some situations.
Agreed. And that's probably why I get the feedback that I get.
And I think this is a big, something I could point out, the big difference between a coach and a psychologist or a therapist in the settings that you're looking for. So finding the appropriate person for the deal you're going through is important. Where a coach is going to be more direct, is going to be more telling because that's their job. In the therapy world, which I would do in the coaching world, I'd be more direct. But in the therapy world, I'm never going to give you what you should do. You're
Yeah.
never going to hear from me, you should do this.
Yeah.
It's helping you guide yourself to finding out what works best for you. And it's neither one are right or wrong. It's setting for the position that you're in. Right?
course,
so that's
of
where
course.
more than one thing can be true, is because it really sets on what setting you're in, what position you're in. And I think that leads to my next piece of awareness that's very important is timing. As you guys were talking about, like with couples, right? Like with your wife, she might want to hear it. That might not be the time. She might not be open for it in that
I'm not
moment.
sure they ever want to really hear it, though. I think it's always a rhetorical question, but
So I'd speak up on this, but I'm concerned my wife's going to hear it. So
Don't worry, she doesn't listen to any of your content.
right?
exactly.
She never listens to me.
But I think that does matter if you're having a conversation around something, if someone's open for the feedback in that moment, or they are open for feedback sometimes, but maybe they're going through something else in that moment. You have to be aware of that too. like, what did they just walk in from? Did they just come
Yeah.
home from work? Maybe that's not the time to yell at them for not taking out the trash, right? Maybe wait a few minutes, check in how they're doing first, and then you can have that conversation of, oh, you left the trash in last night.
So I love that we're doing this. Like, truly, I look at these notes that I'm taking down, right? We're talking about perception is reality, and how do we kind of get people to face reality? And so just from this, it's apparent we need to talk about how to ask for feedback, how to set up a feedback loop that works, right? That is something
Yep.
that we have to be able to solve for, and how to hear feedback, right? And then how to give feedback ourselves, right? How do
Yeah.
we be that person for others as well and do it effectively? And timing's a part of that, Doc, right? Like the finding the right timing, and how blunt should we be, right? So people actually hear us, because we could be as blunt as we want to be, but that means that they're talking to the wall, Victoria, right? Like you brought up,
Yeah.
it doesn't, you accomplish nothing, right?
One thing too on that topic here that I kind of realize when we're having this conversation too is that I do it so often that I forget to shut it off, right? So even in my personal relationship, when somebody comes to me, it just might be, my girlfriend wanting to vent and just shut up and have me listen, and then I start giving advice and opinions when I probably shouldn't, right? So again, guys, this content that you're watching right now is so invaluable because we're gonna come up with so many little things that may not make this module. I'm gonna keep saying that as we go through this type of content, so you remember to take notes, because I think that's a really important one too, is knowing when not to just take a step back and just be able to listen. And I know I'm certainly guilty of that one.
Sorry, I'm gonna butt in. This is random, but my therapist had said that when it comes to couples therapy, one of the main things they go over is how to complain. So one, you have to complain, but there's a certain way to complain to your partner and a certain process and how to do it, as far as the timing, as far as what you offer. Okay, you complain, but you also offer a solution. You end it with, ask how I can help. There's so many interesting things. So this goes for everything.
When I'm working with couples, that's the first thing I try to teach them about their communication, especially if they're having one of those challenges. Am I supposed to listen, or am I supposed to give advice? Is just to ask that question. Is this a moment where you need a shoulder and an ear to listen to, or is this a moment where you want some assistance?
Yeah, I know. I got to tattoo that right here so I can just look at it constantly.
And eventually you don't need to do that. You can start to read each other, but as you're learning that skill, that's one of the biggest pieces to do, is just ask, what am I supposed to be doing in this moment? How am I best attending to you? And you'll be surprised, the majority of the time, it's really, I just want to vent. Like, I know I could quit my job. I know I'm not supposed to do that. I don't need you pointing that out and making it worse. I just need you to listen and be supportive and give that hug right now.
And look, guys, again, if you're like me, I'm a very solution-oriented individual. So when somebody comes to me, my personal relationship, friendships, business, I'm immediately, my brain starts going, I got to come up with a solution, right? So by the time they're done, I've already, okay, great, well, just do A, B, and C, right? That's, what's the solution here? I did this, and I ponder on what is the solution consistently. So if you're like me with that, pay attention and take notes what the doc is saying, because this is a very, very, I would say, internal core, not values, not the word, but skill that you're going to have to master within self-awareness, right? Is knowing when to just ask the question, like, hey, do you just need me to be here for you? Because I know I'm guilty of that for sure. I'm sure Victoria's saying the same thing.
And we can use that as an example of how we can learn. In our defenses, awareness, the biggest challenge of learning a lot of self-awareness is our defenses kick in. And it really depends on how comfortable we are with people, on how well we get defended, or how well we know them if we allow it. We're sitting in the room, we all know each other, we all work together, but we work together at different levels. Like JB and I are going to know each other's vibe a little bit different because we spend a lot more time together. You and Victoria are going to know because you work closely together a lot more often. And we can see that example when I push back at you, you're sitting there, you're listening, you're taking it in. When Victoria pushed in on you a little earlier, you were quick to try to give an answer, but wait, I know, but,
yeah,
right? And that's
She's
just
enjoying this part.
I am.
But that is just a natural defense system, and I think we learn by kind of seeing that in action, how we do things, and that's why I pointed it out further.
no, yeah, it makes sense. And I do pay attention, and as I learn these things, one thing about me is I'm all about the application, right? I don't just learn to learn. I learn so I can apply. So the stuff that we do go through, this stuff, guys, just so you guys know, I apply this stuff in my personal life. I'm not going to speak for JB and the doc, but I'm going to make the assumption they wouldn't be where they are at if they don't do the same. And that's going to be a big thing for you, too, is going through these courses, going through these modules. Learning it is great, understanding it, looking within, but actually applying it day to day, both personally and professionally, is the difference. That is going to be the difference whether or not you use this and get the most out of it or not.
Right, and not just apply today, right? Let's zero in on something you can apply and change your behavior on ongoing.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
it impacts everything in your life positively. That's the goal with all this stuff. So let me ask both of you here, because this is kind of a key question. What happens? What's the why behind this? Like, if you're not self-aware, if you can't really get a grasp on reality, and I know this sounds like a stupid rhetorical question, but like, what's the consequences there?
I mean, I can talk from my perspective, and I definitely want to hear the doc's perspective on this. You're not gonna understand opportunities that are lost, right? So I think for me, especially in the professional world, if I'm that intimidating to somebody, well, I'll never know it. I would never know that I had an opportunity to work with them or bring them on as a client or a vendor. What I'll never know that what that opportunity could have been because I never broke that barrier and allowed them to see who I really am. And I think that's something that I think everybody should really be conscious of, because there are a lot of opportunities that are missed daily that we never even know about. So from a business perspective, I would look at that. From a personal perspective, I think you don't know what a relationship could be. It could be your new best friend. It could be your lifelong love. You have no idea. But if you don't understand what people are perceiving you as, they may never get to know you, and you may never get to know them.
Yeah, that's a big example you talked about earlier with that employee that 6 years it took. Right?
Yeah.
You don't get 6 years with most people you talk to. You're lucky if you get 6 minutes. So, you were lucky in that case that you had someone that got to know you over time and really got to adjust. But a lot of times we don't get that. We get, if we're lucky, 60 seconds. So we have to be really aware of how we come across and how we do things. And just have that awareness is a big piece of that.
Yeah, and I think situationally as well, like we said, right? If I'm walking into a boardroom with a bunch of high-end executives, I'm walking in intimidating. I probably tried to be intimidating at that moment, but which ironically I don't necessarily do, but it's probably something I should. But if I'm walking into more of a social environment, again, understanding how to tone that down a bit.
Yeah. So Doc, I want to hear your why though. What's the big consequence if we are not aware, if we don't have this more accurate reflection of what's real?
I mean, just the self-growth alone is where I would go back to. We're talking in business here in a lot of senses, but awareness helps in relationships. It helps with family. It helps with friends. You really want to look at if there is something that keeps coming up to you that you hear from other people, and you don't believe it to be about yourself. Something about you is portraying that, right? So having that awareness that you might portray this way, that you might have that kind of connection with someone, it really does help you build more connections with people in a lot of meaningful ways. And you don't need to have every connection go perfect, but you want these meaningful ones too. So as you're building out these relationships, you can make sure you're attending to them the best way possible. And the best relationship that you want to attend to is yourself. So I think that's my biggest why is how do I make sure that the number one relationship in my life is the best it can be, and that is myself. Everything else kind of comes from there.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. To me, I mean, this is almost like a scientific thing. This is a science thing. How do you get H2O? You've got a molecule that comes together, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, right? And now we have water. You have something that was not there before. There's a chemistry there, right? Nothing we do is within a vacuum, right? You could be a hydrogen, I could be an oxygen, but we're never in a vacuum. We are always, when we're working with other people and we live in a world where we do nothing truly on our own, everything has exposure to other people, there's these reactions going on all the time. And if we're not aware of what those reactions are, it doesn't matter. They're still happening, right? And that to me is like a big thing here. We need to know what's going on in the real world. Whether or not we're aware of it just means that we might not know there's water when there's water. And if we don't know that, what else don't we know? I mean, that to me is just like it's a very central thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces in awareness that just bring it all back. And I mean, we can go on, and we will.
Do you want to start wrapping it up a little bit? That way we can make sure we download everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, been that quick.
It was good. You guys really,
What do we have until 4 o'clock?
But I want to make sure he gets what he needs on the SD card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got to
Yeah.
download some stuff. No, I mean this is, I mean, really all we talked about right now is like perception of reality and kind of what maybe we need to talk about. You know, the
I think going into some of the consequences more too.
yeah.
You know, obviously not today, but as we move forward, really emphasizing on the consequences and then the pros. The why it's good to be self-aware. Let's really make sure we focus a lot on that.
Yeah, people need to understand the cost here, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's really well understood yet. So we definitely need to explore that more. And then, you know, it's not just about the cost for not doing it or being aware of it, but it's the benefit. Like, what are we actually getting from
Pain
this?
points and solutions.
Yeah.
Yep. The
Yeah,
ROI.
exactly.
What's the ROI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the ROI on all modules is going to be very important.
And this is really, I mean, in a sense, this is just our intro. I mean, this isn't even. I mean, maybe this is a self-awareness module, or maybe this is just the intro into
well,
why
you know
we're
what?
doing
Some of
this.
this content will be pulled right into it. Like, again, we'll come up with a data board, bullet points, and apply those, and just have additional conversation and lesson plans within each module. But some of what we're doing right now is going to be, people will get so much out of anyway that once they get into the course, this stuff will kind of help them flow through it.
Yeah.
Because they'll be prepared to understand how we came about it, and then they get the actual course and it's all put together.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, well, look, guys. I mean, for those of you that are chiming in, we're gonna do a lot of these, and we're gonna give it all to you. Plenty of content. So a lot of BTS, really understanding how we put this together, why we put together, the conversations that took place, the perspective that we each really see these areas, and as you can tell, and not only from this content, but a lot of the other content, it's all very different. We look at things fundamentally differently, but all typically on the same path, right? We're all going down the same type of path. It's how we're getting there and how bumpy or smooth the road's going to be. Mine's typically a little more bumpy, Doc's a little more smooth, right? So I think really paying attention. I hope that you can connect with all three of us. You may relate to one of us more than another, or two of us more than the other. So just, again, I emphasize to really pay attention to content, watch it more than once, take notes, prepare questions. You know, we will be doing live calls at some point. We'll be doing live coaching sessions, live events, and I would love you to have there. I would love for one of you guys that's watching this right now say, hey, I remember the first BTS you guys put out, and here's my questions from that. I would love to, matter of fact, I may put something out where we give them some kind of bonus.
Yeah.
You know, some bonus coaching or something, or some one-on-one time for the first, 10 people or 100 people, or whatever we decide to do, that come with us from the very first questions from the very first BTSC. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, guys, look, I think we have wrapped it up for today. As always, let's make it happen.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Peace out.